Good afternoon. And three.
Amen. Welcome to the podcast, really, where we discuss topics, events that need clarity. In other words, make it make sense. You didn't really think we were going to take your word for it. You did it. God, how you doing, Mr. Christian? Amen.
Well, listen, it's a Sunday. I had a little bit of a perturbation last night, but it's a Sunday, and I feel enormously blessed to be in the presence of our brother, the Right Honorable Reverend Black, who's always out here in our community trying to educate us to the right path, as the Lord Jesus Christ would have us do.
Sir, it is an honor and a blessing for you to be on my podcast. Today's sponsor, he should be sponsoring. He on his sponsor by Gabriel Christian and Associates LLC, the law firm in Prince George's County. And before I go forward, I don't want y'all to come back and say, "Oh, Black, you didn't tell us everything." Yes, he is my family's personal attorney. Who else would I have on here but my own? Let me tell you guys something. I will never bring anyone on this podcast that I can't stand with and stand beside. This gentleman here, you can take it to the bank. Mr. Christian, how's the family? How's everyone doing, sir?
Well, Brother Black, I feel enormously blessed. My wife's fine. Our mom, who's 95 years old, who went through World War II and was a Red Cross volunteer and an instructor of the blind and a teacher. She's hanging on there. She's got a bit of Alzheimer's. My kids, my son and my daughter, God bless them. I'm trying to encourage one or two, or both of them to enter the law business because we need good lawyers. We need good lawyers in our community because our people keep getting scammed. We kept seeing so many of our kids imprisoned, sometimes unjustifiably. We need to have lawyers not only to do criminal defense work, but also to do the civil litigation work, to make sure folks, when they're injured, that they can get compensation, to make sure we have businesses in our community, the shops, the boutiques, the factories. All of those things require legal services. Everything we see in our modern society is a product of the legal environment of business. And so a lot of times in our community, we think you only need a lawyer when you're in trouble, but you also need a lawyer when you're trying to do an LLC, limited liability company, or a corporate entity. You also need a lawyer when you're trying to do a purchase of a business. You need a lawyer to do a buy-sell agreement, to make sure that you have all the tax information on the business you're acquiring, to make sure they're not in legal trouble themselves, to make sure you're not acquiring someone else's debt. All of that requires legal expertise. And so oftentimes in our community, we think we only need a lawyer when we're sick, meaning when we're in trouble. Not at all. You need a lawyer at all times. So you can, like with you can call me at any time, morning, noon, or night. I'm always here to be the obedient servant of Brother Black.
You are.
Yes, sir.
Now, I want to touch on two things you said. Now, you have a very your route to becoming a lawyer, and I want young people to understand this. You actually started at UDC, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I started at UDC January of 1983, and I was given my degree at the old convention center by the late great Marion Barry, who many people don't know, was on his way to a PhD in chemistry.
Yes, sir.
And was a leading Eagle Scout in his state. I think he was born in Mississippi. So I did procurement and public contracting at UDC from 1983 to 86. I was a president of the procurement club. I was president of the Caribbean Students Association because I was born on an English island in the Caribbean called Dominica, not to be confused with the Dominican Republic, which is Spanish. And I was the chairman of the DC Student Coalition Against Racism and Apartheid, working alongside the different students from Howard and American University, because at that time, we still had apartheid in South Africa, and the Klan had planned to have a rally in DC. And because I came up in the time of a guy called James Brown, who said, "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud."
Yes, sir.
I came to the DC with that in my mind because on the island, because it was an English island, we read Ebony and we read Jet. So I've been reading Ebony and Jet since I was 6 years old.
Okay.
So I came with a clear mind. I remember, Brother Black, and I need to say it today because every day I'm channeling Abe Lincoln, who gave his life for our cause of our freedom. Every day I'm channeling Brother Malcolm, who also gave his life for a cause. And of course, every day, I'm channeling the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King, whose death I remembered. I was in kindergarten school on the island. My aunt was a principal. And I came in, and they said that Dr. King had been killed. And everyone was very sad. And we had a moment of silence. At that time, Dominica was a British colony. I was a British subject.
Yes,
But
sir.
my father's younger sister, who died last year at 101, was the principal. Her name was Floss Bueller Christian. And we had a moment of silence. But there's a reason for that. So in the English islands, there's a famous calypso singer from the island of Trinidad called Slinger Francisco, the mighty sparrow. He was actually born in Grenada, but he grew up in Trinidad.
Okay.
And he had made a very famous song. Do you know what that song's title was?
What was it, sir?
Martin Luther King for President.
Oh, never heard that. Wow.
And it was a very, if you go to YouTube, the next time you come on, I will send you the link. I want you to play both songs. He made two songs.
Okay.
In 65, 66, he made a song after Dr. King got the Nobel Prize for Peace. He made a song called Martin Luther King for President. It swept the charts. It was very popular. So as a child, I grew up hearing that song. And when he was murdered, he made another song in tribute to him in 69. And it went in part like this. Now that our great liberator has gone, segregation must be destroyed.
Amen.
And so coming to UDC, I had that in my mind. So the first month I'm at UDC, my older brother said, look, you know, I'd lost 2 scholarships, Reverend Black, for being in the Black Power movement. Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes, sir. Because a lot of the people in that time, even if they were Black, they were very conservative. They thought that Black poor folks were very troublesome. They thought that we were good British subjects. The Queen was our mother, and that we had power. We had Black ministers, we had Black police chiefs, so we shouldn't worry about Black power. That was something that only people in the United States should worry about. But we were concerned that even though we had Black leaders, that was true. Even though the British had allowed for a lot of reform that brought in the vote, which was true. My dad had been in the British Army in World War II, but they didn't have the vote until after the war. So we wanted more power, and we wanted to learn about Africa, and we wanted to unite with our African-American brothers and sisters, because remember, in the English-speaking Caribbean, we're a minority. The majority of the people in the Caribbean are Spanish-speaking. Cuba, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, all of these are Caribbean-linked countries. They are Dominican Republic. They are Spanish-speaking. So in the English-speaking Caribbean, the people in those islands focused on African Americans, because those were our bigger brothers, you see. That is where Dr. King came from. That is where Malcolm X was from. That is where Ebony came from. That's where Jet Magazine came from. So African Americans were, in our mind, leading our move as a people towards a better place. So we looked towards African Americans. I can tell you a few things our people need to know, because that is what governs my law practice. So when I was a child, that's when the first movies came with Black people in them, as other than servants. The first time we saw a Black man kiss a white woman was Jim Brown in 100 Rifles. The woman was Raquel Welch.
Yes, sir.
And then we saw a Black man in a movie as starring, he was Sidney Poitier in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
Yes, sir.
And then we had Cleopatra Jones. Then we had Shaft 1 and Shaft 2. So we moved from a time when Black folks in the movies was simply step and fetch it servants, maids, to a time when Black people were heroes. So our time was a very revolutionary time, and that has governed my life from this point in time. So I'm there at UDC at Connecticut Avenue, and this woman, young white woman, she's in the middle of the quadrangle. She's saying, big anti-Klan rally this weekend. Smash the Klan. Don't allow the Klan to come to DC. Big anti-Klan. Now, my brother said, look, Gabe, you're going to school. Stay out of this Black power business.
Stay in your league.
Stay in your lane. You're there to go do your math, your physics, your business, and all that, right? So I'm walking down, and I walked straight by her. I bent my head down, but something told me, you know, God has his way. He says, lift your head up. So I lifted my head up, and this woman, I think we became very good friends. She was a Jewish. She was a Jew. Her name was Nancy Schwab. She said, brother, I think she was of the Socialist Workers' Party. He says, brother, You mean to tell me you're not coming to smash the Klan? You're not coming to rally against the Klan on Saturday? Brother Black, I felt very, very
That was
embarrassed. Shame,
it.
shame, shame. I said, okay, give me the pamphlet, give me the flyer. I'll be there. I was. And within 1 week, I was lecturing the students on apartheid. And within 1 month, I became the chairman. And within 6 months, we're in New York at Hunter College, City University of New York, for the largest civil rights and anti-apartheid summit in U.S. history of students.
Okay.
And so UDC was a place for my intellectual maturation. I got out of the 4-year program in 3 years. I was on the dean's list.
Yes,
And then
sir.
I took the LSAT and got into Georgetown University in 1987. And that year I was the only person from UDC to get into Georgetown University Law Center.
And see, that's what I wanted to touch on. I wanted the young people to know you don't have to start at the prestigious school. You just have to end there. Because
That's right.
Your travel went from UDC, which nobody talks about, to
That's right.
Georgetown. And that, that diploma says Georgetown. That law diploma says Georgetown.
That's right. That's right. I was very, very fortunate to have gone to UDC. UDC had great teachers.
Yes, sir.
But you see, UDC was just burdened by the historical premise or the historical falsehood that folks who are coming from HBCUs are less than.
Right.
Folks who are coming from HBCUs have gone from the from behind the serving counter to the White House, and they've gone all over the world and done great things. The HBCUs in the United States are a blessing from God Himself. It's been a union of progressive white people, Jews, Black progressive people coming together and doing fantastic things in education. And I'm very proud to be an HBCU graduate. And I've dedicated all my life to promoting HBCUs. And in fact, I'll let your listening audience know in 2014, All Law Firm donated the first solar car in history to an HBCU. And that's the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And I served on the University of Maryland Eastern Shore as a board of advisors member. And I'm going to just bring this up because I think this is something that's very important for folks to know. And that is, it's not where you start, but it's where you end up. And that you must never forget. You must never forget where you came from. And you must always try to help your community to prosper. And I'm going to do this, Reverend Black, because I want you to see this. It's very important that your audience sees this right here. Let's see. This is the car right. This is a solar car right there. It's powered by the sun, and that is for the engineering department. Okay.
Okay.
And that is in 2014. And if you see what it says right here,
I see it. Stakeholder Gabriel Christian, a Washington area attorney who offered the vehicle as a gift to support alternative energy instruction.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Fantastic.
So what I say to all the HBCU graduates out there, you go on to Harvard, you go on to Yale or Georgetown, don't forget where you come from.
Amen.
Take some time to go back and help out. So I've not done as much with UDC, but I've done a lot with the HBCU called UMES on the Eastern Shore. And we're working towards working with UDC on aviation very soon because we are in the aviation maintenance business. So we can help our young people to not only learn how to fly, but also to learn how to fix planes, because right now there's a deficit in the United States of aviation technicians. There are 300,000 jobs in aviation technician maintenance work that's needed, that they don't have enough trained technicians for, and that's a huge opportunity. Those jobs start at $55,000 a year, and within 3 years you can be at $100,000. So we want to encourage our young people to stay in school, do your math, your physics, your chemistry, your biology, STEM engineering or STEM sciences, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Very important to our law firm because we feel as lawyers, we don't want to just be reactive lawyers, meaning waiting for people to come to us when they have a problem. We want to go to the schools, the HBCUs, the other institutions and encourage our community to stay in school, study hard, read your books, be disciplined, and become members of the Tuskegee Airmen Association. As you know, I became the first foreign-born president of the association in 2018, and I had high honor and privilege of having my brother, Brother Black, to be there. Tell us about that, Brother Black.
I really appreciate. Yes, man. The way they honored you, I got to sit at the table with you, with the honor the president of,
Yes,
and
sir.
it's some fantastic men. Matter of fact, as you talk about that, we're creating a page on my website called Crossover for Tuskegee Airmen. So
Yes,
I'll
sir.
I'll get with you on that. And it's funny you mentioned HBCU. Today at Galilee Baptist Church, we had the choir from Bowie State. You talk about
Outstanding.
some singing young people. Woo-wee. They
Yes, sir.
really blessed us in song today at Galilee Baptist Church. I also want you to mention now, you
Brother Black, that's where we met when we came with then Delegate Aisha Braveboy to
yes,
do
I wanted to
a
mention
legal
that.
ministry. Yes,
You
sir.
had some very powerful people in PG come out of your law firm. Talk about that, who you've had there. Because I
We feel enormously blessed, and the blessing is no good if you keep it for yourself. You see,
how about that?
the purpose, I think, of human existence, where it is to be noble, is to first of all be kind and to share that which you have with others. Right? When Jesus Christ got the loaves of bread and the fish, okay, did he keep it for himself and Mary Magdalene and his disciples? No. He did what he could to multiply those loaves of bread and that fish to feed the multitude. And so we're in feeding the multitude business. And in the middle of COVID-19, we went to the town of Fairmont Heights and we fed the elderly and the shut in. And we didn't know at that time, Brother Black, whether we were coming, whether we were going. This was the height.
Yes,
We
sir.
didn't know whether we were going to get killed by that act of charity, but we did it. And I'll send you the video of that. We had it filmed. Now, we've used, because I came as a law clerk through a guy called Thomas A. Farrington, who was chairman. He was white. He was the first white lawyer to join the NAACP in the history of Prince George's County. He was a mentor of Tommy Broadwater, who passed away and whose funeral I spoke at.
Spoke at, I
And
remember.
his junior partner, John Smallwood, at a white firm, I was the only black law clerk there at the time, hired me as a clerk in '88, and I became an associate and I became partner. And then he passed away 27 years ago this year. But during the time I've been uh, associate, well, not an associate, I didn't have any hiring power. Once I became able to hire people, I immediately began hiring young lawyers, primarily at that time from Howard University. Janine Hunt is now a judge in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
Clifford Bush is now a colonel in the U.S. Army and he's a municipal judge in Beaufort, South Carolina. Former district court judge Tiffany Hannah Anderson is now a circuit court judge. Tiffany Hannah Anderson up at Upper Marlboro. We had, of course, Delegate Aisha Braveboy, who is now the county state's attorney.
Yes, sir.
And we've had other people come through, like Stephanie out of Anne Arundel County. So we've done all we can. And Gregory Yancey, the chief of staff to Governor Westmore for community outreach.
Okay.
He reminded me his first job out of Georgetown was at our law firm. I'd forgotten that. I knew he'd worked with me, but I didn't know it was his first job.
Right.
So, you have to spread your bread on the waters. You have to be willing to sometimes, not go on that cruise or buy a big car, big house, so you can stretch those dollars to allow the doors to remain open to our community. Because you see, if we don't own business, it's hard to do internships. If we don't own law firms, how are you going to give people the opportunity? If you're just an employee somewhere, and not the employer, it's hard to open doors. And so I feel that I was blessed to have had Dr. Albert Carter, who was from DC, who was my mentor at UDC. I had also Admiral William Ryan, who was with the Defense Logistics Agency. He was my mentor at UDC. He worked at the Pentagon full-time and taught at UDC part-time. Those folks opened doors to me. And so my job now is to open doors to others and keep the doors open. And so I tell people, when you hire us as a firm, the money goes right back in the community. It recycles 3, 4, 5 times because we try to support community-owned business so that we can have a strong community here in Prince George's County. Prince George's County is my home, and I'm proud to say both my kids were born here in Prince George's County, and we love Prince George's County, and we want to prosper Prince George's County and DC, because I'm a DC man as well. I came of age in DC working. Reverend Black, do you know I worked on Trump's boat?
Really?
Sir, in 1984-85, I had 80 boats on Potomac River there in Southwest by the fish market.
I know the
I was a dock steward. A dock steward is really a janitor. You clean out the boat, You tie up the boat, you keep a logbook, and you do that in 100-degree weather or minus 20-degree weather. I'd be out there in the Potomac when the river's frozen over, pulling a huge cart full of trash. And at UDC, holding down 7 classes with a 3.9, sometimes a 4.0. But I needed the money. I was getting $4.10. And I worked on the old presidential yacht, Sequoia. I worked on Trump's boat when he would come down to visit DC on his yacht. He was even then very arrogant,
Right.
but I'm just a small island boy, I used to be sometimes a little scared in the spring when the weather was nice and all the ladies were coming on the promenade in nice spring frocks and the nice clothes coming from church. And I had to be pulling this huge cart of trash. I didn't want anybody to see me. I used to be afraid, boy, someone from my class would see me out there hauling trash. But Reverend Black, that built character in me,
Yes, it
you
does.
see,
Yes,
because
it
I
does.
had to be humble. I had to do what I had to do. I wasn't selling dope. I wasn't carrying on breaking houses. I was working hard by the sweat of my brow to put myself through school, and then I got scholarships. So I give thanks to Almighty Father for keeping me humble and keeping me focused on the importance of service. No matter how far you go in life, it's always important to remember where you came from and turn back and give service. Yes, sir.
And sir, talk about some of the things that is offered through Gabriel Christian and Associates. Why would someone come to your law firm? What can they expect? Because I know you given me. I have one of your pamphlets. It's the list of things that you guys specialize in. So just give us some of them that
Well,
you
well,
guys.
well, we're blessed. We are civil and criminal defense law firm. So civil law, and that is law involving civilians, business owners. We do the incorporations, the business formations. Personal injury. The firm, remember, was not a black-owned firm. It was
Okay.
owned by a white gentleman who went to Yale University and was chairman of the Maryland Democratic Party, not the Prince George's Democratic Party. So he rolled with Steny Hoyer and the governor and those people. I was just a foot soldier, law clerk. But life is interesting. So my dad was in the British Army. I was a British Army cadet on Dominica. This guy was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne. After Yale, he was a captain. And he had a club called the World War II Club. What was the World War II Club? Those were white judges and lawyers, all of them old enough to be my parent, who met once a month and had dinner. And they discussed different battles, Guadalcanal, Midway, Battle of the Bulge. And they would discuss it over dinner, have wine and steak and salmon, and decide what did Judge Patton do? How did he win this battle? What equipment did they have? So one day he was in the kitchen and said he was going to have a meeting of the World War II Club. I was at a law clerk at Georgetown, full-time and part-time at the office. And I said something. And he says, Gabe, what do you know about World War II? Well, he didn't know that my father had served in World War II. He
Right.
didn't know I'd been an Army cadet from the age of 11. He didn't know that all I ever wanted to be was a soldier like my father. I never wanted to be a lawyer. I
Okay.
only became a lawyer during the time of Black Power when I became involved in student politics. And people said, Gabe, you speak well. You should be a lawyer. But my whole ambition was to be a soldier. Even today, most of what I read is military science.
Okay.
That's kind of how I ended up in the Tuskegee Airmen, which is a military sort of oriented organization. So he said, you know what? I'm going to invite you to the club. And so he invited me to the club. And I gave one presentation. And there's an old Italian-American guy called Sam Serio from Baltimore. He's a former cop, a former homicide detective who had gone to law school, and he was a member of the club. He says, Tom, stop trying to BS me with this law clerk. That's a history professor you brought in here. And they made me a member of the club. Remember, I'm not a lawyer yet.
Right.
I've not graduated law school yet. I've not taken the bar. And these are people like Jim Salmon, who just died, who was on the Court of Special Appeals. Tom Farrington, who was the lawyer for Dimensions. Dimensions owned all the hospitals in the county. He was a lawyer for USAA, for Allstate, for Lloyd's of London. So it was a corporate firm specializing in insurance work. But by inviting me to the club and my utility in way of mastery of history opened doors for me. So when I became a lawyer, I got licensed. I walked into the courtroom one day, Judge Salmon presiding, who just passed away this year, and he says, ladies and gentlemen, all rise. Hear ye, hear he. Here comes Gabe Christian, who knows more about World War II than Ike Eisenhower. And everybody started laughing. And, so that relationship between knowledge of history, of course, I was a good law clerk. I was very competent. I was very respectful. And then, of course, when I graduated in 91, Mr. Farrington's office said, look, guess what? I was bringing in business. when I was not supposed to. A law clerk is a support staff. You're not
Yes, sir.
required to bring in business. But I was handing out my cards to different people, and I started bringing in business as a clerk. So they offered me a position as an associate, and I became Mr. Farrington's associate. And then in '92, the firm went through a transition, it split. And Mr. Farrington, who'd opened doors to me, who had mentored me, he asked me where I was living. I said, no, sir, I'll be with you till the end.
Yes, sir.
How true that was. And I stayed with him, became his partner in '93. We bought the office in Bowie, which you've been to many times. And he died suddenly of a massive heart attack in '97, essentially living the rest of the firm to me. I bought that from his estate. So I tell young people, when you go to a job, do your best, be disciplined, be productive. That may just be the job for the rest of your life,
No,
as it became in my case.
now,
Yes.
now, you don't know this. Let me tell you how I came to know about you. I was down there. I was at the court building in Upper Marlboro with my wife for something. I can't think of what it was, and it was something minor, but she needed an attorney. And we were walking down the hall, and a security guard heard our conversation and said, "You need Gabriel Christian," and he gave us your card. The security guard. And that's how I came to know you. I'm like, and he said, "You need Gabriel Christian." I mean,
Amen.
security guard
Amen.
just sitting there. But I want to, when you were on my radio show, I want you to talk about that expungement stuff, because that really triggered a lot of calls there. You were talking about how it keeps people, some of our brothers and sisters, from getting a job when they've been in the system. They don't know that they can get certain things expunged off their record that will clean their record, that will free them and allow them to get certain jobs, and that it seems to be preventing them from getting jobs.
Yeah, so that's very important. So a lot of people, even when you get a nolli prosequi, that is, the case is not pursued, or the case is you're acquitted, or you have a step, you must go and have it expunged, because if you have a record on file, what happens is employer does a record search and find that may put you in a place that's not desirable. So if you're found guilty of a crime, if you, let's say, convicted of murder, you can get maybe you do your time, you may get a government's pardon, but let's say there are other crimes, you may be able to get those expunged. Maryland law allows certain criminal convictions to be expunged after a satisfactory completion of a sentence, including parole, probation, or mandatory supervision. In fact, many times I've had convictions and I've done a motion to reconsider, and they entered the case PBJ, that is probation before judgment. You can get that expunged, okay? So I tell people, come to us, bring us your file, and if you fall within the category of a stat or PBJ or some nuisance crime, like urination in public, some sort of what do you call misdemeanor, we can get that expunged for you and clean up your record for you.
Right.
Sometimes it may be a little more difficult, but we're at 301-218-9400, or you just go online, Gabriel Christian, you'll find us, and we'll go out there and file the paperwork for you. Even with marijuana now, if you have a cannabis conviction, after 3 years, you may be able to get that expunged as well, even if you've been convicted.
Good to know.
Yes, sir.
Good to know. That's 301-218-9400, Gabriel and Christian. What about the wills? Why do our people, I know we don't, in the Black community, we don't like to talk about death as if we're going to skip it. We're not, but that's one appointment you're going to make. You don't have to work, and you're going to be on
Bob Marley.
that one.
Bob Marley, the famous reggae singer, like to say everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die.
Want to die.
So you can't skip that phase. You got to go through that phase. So let me explain a few things. There are 3 things we advise all people to get. 1, get a power of attorney, because you may be alive but unable to take care of your affairs. I remember a guy who was working for Department of Transportation of Maryland. He was on a tractor mowing the grass in the median of a highway, I think 301 or one of those places, and it overturned, because sometimes the median has a slope, and it fell on him, and he was in a coma for 6 months. And he was the one who paid the rent. His girlfriend was living with him. She had no power of attorney. His money was direct deposited into his account. She was not on the
On
account.
account.
So they couldn't pay the rent.
Wow.
And I had to come in and get guardianship because, and guardianship is much more involved, much more time consuming, much more expensive. You know, so I say to people, don't wait until you're sick. As long as you're over 18 and you have any sort of property or whatever, designate somebody, a mother, a father, a friend, a brother, or sister, as your power of attorney. So if something happens to you, they can act on your behalf. You may be in a coma, you may
Right.
be in a car crash, and you're unable to do things. They can act on your behalf. Now, the power of attorney, Brother Black, dies when you die. It
Okay.
dies with you. That's when you need to get the second document. It's called a will. A will basically says to the world that this is what I want done with my material possessions, my house, my land, well, on insurance policies, normally there is a beneficiary clause,
Yes,
right?
sir.
But sometimes the people on the beneficiary clause may be dead.
Right.
So you can still and should still put into the will who you would like to get that. Of course, in the contest between the will and the beneficiary clause on the insurance contract, the law goes with the insurance contract. So if the insurance contract says Reverend Black gets insurance and the will says Gabe Christian gets insurance, the one that's on the contract is what will prevail. Reverend Black will get that money. But
Yes, sir.
assuming Reverend Black is dead, for
Right.
whatever reason, he left us early, then they would go to the will. So you need to have a will done because it tells the world what you want done. And the value of a will is that when you pass away, then you don't have to have your estate be decimated and dissipated by lawyers'
I
fees
want you to
because you
talk
have to go to
about that.
probate.
Yes, Lord.
Probate costs money.
There is no
Probate
reason to
costs
settle
money.
that. They're going to take
Yes, sir.
everything.
Probate costs money. And next thing you know, you have a little estate, but because you're squabbling, because they didn't know what the deal was, you use all that money that could otherwise have been used for the family members who were left behind.
That is key. Because you find out late. I mean, I've so many of our stars per se in the entertainment.
Aretha Franklin
like
comes
you
to
and
mind.
they don't have wills. I'm like,
Aretha Franklin comes to mind. And
come to mind.
I want I want to say to you, it's so easy. We do it for very limited, for very, very, very. We give them the Reverend Black price. We give them the Reverend Black, the Brother Black price. I tell people, just call us 301-218-9400. We'll give you a will. We'll give you the package. There's a package we give you. The package includes power of attorney. Give us somebody you want to have stand for you in the event you're not able to do it yourself. The will, which tells the world what you want done with your material goods once you passed on. And the living will. What's the living will? Well, I can tell you there have been so many families have had to counsel where daughter wants mom to hang on, son wants mom to go, not because they're bad people, but because daughter may be more sentimental and more attached to mama. Son may be feeling, well, mama is just lying there with the hose of her other place and the other hose in the nose and suffering, and I don't want to see mama in that state. But there's no living will, which is another name for a living will is an advanced health directive that basically says to the doctors and healthcare providers, this person, Reverend Black, or this person, Gabe Christian, is authorized to make final decisions for me with regard to my health care. For instance, they may say that I don't want any heroic measures.
Right.
I don't want to be intubated. I don't want to be on life support. That if two doctors, including my physician, says there's no hope or expectation of recovery, pull the plug.
Right.
Okay? And it can outline different bases upon which that plug can be pulled. We had the case of Miss Shivo in history. You had the case of Karen Ann Quinlan, people who stayed around for years, comatose, because there's no set of decisive advanced health directive that says, look, I don't want to hang around. And I'll tell you right now, I told my wife, I don't want to hang around. Right. I'm a person, I'm here to juice every moment of life. When you called me, I wasn't feeling my best, but I said, listen, man, I want to come on the program, Mike, because our mother taught us, Reverend Black, never leave for tomorrow that which you can do today. Yeah. And so I'm talking to you and I feel well already.
I want to run something by you now. I saw this happening. I want to get it right. A friend of my wife's got sick. She had just given birth, and during the birth, it was a late term, and she really got sick and went in. She was comatose, and she didn't have a will. Her husband, they had 3 kids. Her husband wanted to hang on one life support, but she was at a Catholic hospital, and they said his rights, the hospital being Catholic, over trumped all this stuff, and they pulled the plug.
Well, uh, let me say this. I'm not sure about the details of the case,
Yes, sir.
but normally in today's world, because of a fear of institutions getting sued, they always want to make sure that, in fact, if you come in and you don't have a advanced health directive, sometimes the hospital will give you one.
Right.
Like sometimes when you go into the surgery, even when the surgery is not necessarily very risky, they will give you one.
Yeah.
And that is to kind of make sure that they are cleared of any liability.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? Where someone says, well, gee, you didn't have any authorization. This person could live. And
Right.
so they will provide you with
Yeah. That's what I was
a
thinking.
living will. But bottom line is normally the hospitals will deal with next of kin. And next of kin will be husband, wife,
Right.
mother, father, or in the case of people who are elderly, the children. They will usually have a conference
Yeah. Yeah.
and they'll
Yeah.
speak to the family and they will give you the stats. They will give you a sort of assessment of what they think, and they will ask for opinion. The thing about it is, a lot of families are not unanimous. In our family, we've decided certain things that we don't want to engage in heroic measures. Although in recent times, our own mother has gone in several times, but she's come back out.
Yes, sir.
But we don't want to leave her on life support. That's agreed.
Yes. Yes. Now, just switching subjects. Tell us about, because you're big still in it, and I get all the emails from them, and they always giving away money, giving away scholarship to Tuskegee Airmen. Tell us
Yes,
about that.
sir.
That's a
Yes,
big
sir.
one.
Yeah. So one of the things that we walk in the spirit of Thurgood Marshall. Justice Thurgood Marshall, before he became Justice Marshall, gave most of his life in legal services to the Legal Defense Fund of the NAACP. My wife and I are life members of the NAACP because we realize where we are because of people like Justice Marshall. Before that, when he was a lawyer for the NAACP, and the NAACP itself, all it's done for civil rights, opening doors for us. And that's why we have a lot of love for people like Abe Lincoln and Martin King and NAACP, and the Tuskegee Airmen, because we realize that where we are today is a function of the sacrifices they made. So it's not simply a question of nostalgia, but a realization that we as a community must be organized. We must join organization. Right now, the Urban League, the NAACP, Tuskegee Airmen, we are all suffering from a lack of dynamic young membership. We need, and I'm sending this on your airwaves this afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Folks, those of you who listen to me, call our office, 301 218 9400. You don't need any money. All you need is a heart. All you need is a head. All you need is a conscience. And to understand that we are recruiting for the Tuskegee Airmen Association. We need young lawyers. We need young doctors. We need young business people. We need students to come in and join the organization. Brother Black, when you were with us about 6, 7, 8 years ago at that dinner, we had about 10 members left who were originals.
Yeah, with the red
We only
coat.
have one left. We only have
Wow.
one left.
I see it. I
Okay.
get the email.
By next year, we won't maybe have any. So
Yes,
what that means is that we need to keep on replenishing the pool by bringing in new membership. The more members we have, the more we can do in our community. And what do we do in our community? There are two bases for the existence of the Tuskegee Airmen Associations. There are 52 in the United States. The first one, and the national capital chapter, is our chapter, the East Coast chapter, formed in 1973 by people like General Benjamin O. Davis and the others who have now passed on. And our focus is, one, preservation of the noble heritage of the Tuskegee Airmen, who served in the U.S. Army Air Corps in World War II and who ended up being the best unit in air combat, and who, by their distinction in service, when they came out of service, were proponents, advocates, and heroes of the civil rights movement. Let me give you an example. How many people know that while Thurgood Marshall argued the brief for Brown versus Board of Education, which led to the desegregation of U.S. education, the brief was actually written by William Coleman, who had gone to Harvard and was a Harvard-educated lawyer who had been a Tuskegee Airman. Okay. So the Tuskegee Airmen, in great measure, their legacy lives on, not just in service in World War II and what they did in aviation science, but in their many members who went on to civic leadership like William Coleman. There's more to it. That William Coleman, who was the primary author of the brief that Thurgood Marshall argued. So lots of times, even in my office, okay, I go to court and I argue briefs. I don't write all the brief.
Okay.
A lot of times it's my law clerks and my associates.
Oh, you do
prepare it.
I met her.
And I will edit it. I will maybe shape it, but they give me the brief. Right. Because, I'm busy doing other things.
Yes, sir.
So he later on became the second African-American in history to be a cabinet member of the United States federal government. He was the Secretary of Transportation under Gerald Ford and is credited of promoting the 50-mile-an-hour limit, which reduced deaths as well as innovations such as the airbag we have today. So the airbag that we have today in automobiles has a lot to do not just with Ralph Nader and other consumer safety advocates, but also the vision of the Tuskegee Airmen who became Secretary of Transportation under Gerald Ford and who co-wrote the brief for the case Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas. So the Tuskegee Airmen heritage is something we need to preserve. The second aspect of our mission is youth in aviation. Only about 4 to 5%, maybe a little less, of aviation professionals in the United States are African American. African Americans are about 13 to 14% of the general population. So we need another 10% increase to keep parity with where we are in the population. So we need more African American pilots. We need to see more African American space and aerospace professionals. We need to see more African American aviation engineers and aviation technicians to fix planes. Whenever you hear there's a problem with an aircraft, wheel flies out, a door flies out, it tells you there was a problem in the maintenance of that aircraft. Yes, had it been properly maintained, those things would not have happened. Okay, and so we have a deficit right now in our country in way of aviation technicians. I know that because of my place with the Tuskegee Airmen, and also the current president of the Tuskegee Airmen East Coast chapter is Jerome Hodge. Jerome Hodge is a distinguished graduate of the United States Air Force Aviation Maintenance System. He was a flight engineer and an aviation technician for 21 years, worked on fighters and Air Force One, Air Force Two, all those kinds of platforms, C-130 Hercules. And when he left the Air Force after 21 years, he did something remarkable. Most people, when they retire, they go play golf or go take a cruise to the Caribbean. He set up an aviation company called Avnine, which today is arguably perhaps the largest Black-owned aviation maintenance company in the country. It has shops at BWI, which is where it's headquartered. It has a shop at Dulles International Airport, and it has its biggest workforce at DC Ronald Reagan National Airport, where it has a big contract, the first African-American-owned company in history, we believe, to have a contract with American Airlines, fixing planes for American Airlines, is Avnine Aero Services. And I'm happy to say that I've served as his lawyer for many years, and now I'm part of the company as well. Yes, and we are looking to encourage the formation of an aviation science academy here in Maryland, preferably in Prince George's County, where we can get our young boys and girls involved in aviation maintenance science education. It's an 18-month program, and they come out with a salary ranging anywhere from $50,000 to $55,000 out the door. And within 3 years, it can be at $100,000. And that's not a degree. That's not a college degree now. That's a diploma. That's 18 months. And so I would not have been part of that company. I would not have known of that company had I not volunteered my time to serve as a volunteer. Remember, guys, volunteer, you don't get paid. Hey, you've got to go in there and serve. I tell young people, the best thing you can do in life is to volunteer, Because when you volunteer, you're meeting people who are similarly high-minded, because they're not there for money. They're there to help the community. And by involvement in voluntary organizations, you improve the quality of life in your community. Because a volunteer is someone who's not going to break a house. A volunteer is someone who's not going to burglarize someone's property. A volunteer is not going to knock someone over the head and steal their purse or rob them of their money. A volunteer is not going to do dope. Normally, a volunteer is someone of high moral virtue, right? So when you stick, when we're kids, they teach us birds of a feather.
Yes, sir. Stick together.
Flock together. So if you are in a voluntary organization, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be associated with high caliber individuals who will take you in positive direction, positive places. So I'm making a call this evening through your medium to ask folk who hear my voice to reach out online. It's www.ecctai.org. That's
wait a minute. Give me that one more time.
It's www. Dot ecctai.org. That's East Coast Chapter Tuskegee Airmen Inc. East Coast Chapter Tuskegee Airmen Inc. We're accepting, it's $100 a year if you're an adult, $15 a year if you're a student. Your jacket costs $110. The tie, we give it to you for free. So the fact is, and of course, we expect you to be involved in voluntary effort and fundraising and encouraging others to come in. And I tell people the importance of the Tuskegee Airmen Association and others like it is it gives our community a place to dissipate its energy in a positive direction. Because, another thing they taught us as kids, the devil finds work for idle hands. Okay? So I believe too many of our young people, Brother Black, are idle. I want to take a moment to say something about some of our famous singers, artists who've been in trouble of late. I ask God to have mercy on them.
Yes, sir.
I pray for them because that's what we must do as Christian people.
Yes, sir.
But it's something I also learned as a child growing up. It's a saying that goes like this: common events cast their shadow before them. Let me repeat. Common events cast their shadow before them. What do I mean by that? If you always are there carrying on, if you're using the N word, if you're using the MF word, if you're using the B word to describe our women, you are speaking from your mouth that which is in your head and that which is in your heart. And if you continue along that trajectory of using language that's demeaning, that's degrading, that's emblematic of indiscipline, you are soon to find yourself in difficulty. And so I tell people, be careful of what comes out of your mouth.
Yes, sir.
Let what comes out of your mouth be educated, be informative, be inspirational, be creative, be constructive, be developmental, be community service oriented, be about volunteerism, kindness, peace, and love. Because if we do that, we shall have a better community. But if what comes out of your mouth, you play it on your iPhone or your Android, on your car radio, and you play it in your home, the N word, the B word, the MF word, you are undermining what our greats worked, sacrificed, and died for, which is to ensure our freedom and our prosperity. So I was at a barber not too long ago. I was at the barber yesterday. My good friend, 30 years, he was using it to describe. I said, listen, man, I don't want you to. It's not the first time for him. I did it, not for him. Another guy did the same thing. I said, don't use the word. He said, oh, no, Gabriel, I didn't mean it against you. I said, I understand. But when we have become comfortable in our African-American community, and I'm going to use that now specific to us, because we have the biggest problem of self-hate and self-destructive behavior. And that's just a fact, because I'm fighting it every day. I go to jail, brother. Reverend, while I'm not some fancy dancy lawyer in some castle. I go to jail, brother.
Yes, sir.
And it's like the Richard Pryor joke. If you want to see justice, you go to the jail. That's what you'll see.
Just us.
Justice.
Just us.
So I want to stop that rot. I want to do what I can in my life to prevent more of our brothers and sisters as having the faith. Here we have brothers and sisters who have achieved much, $1 million, $1 billion, and you're using your wealth in ways that are destructive of yourself and destructive of your community, and turning young minds that should be energized in a spiritually ascendant fashion to be degraded in a spiritually descendant fashion, going down, down, down to the pits of hell and damnation. We don't need that. We need to make sure that music, you see, because music, repeat that to me, Brother Black, music is the soundtrack of life itself.
Amen. Yes, Lord.
Okay? So if the music you're putting into your head in the morning is corrupted, so to your entire day shall be corrupted. It's a subliminal message that shapes your character. So I tell people, be careful about the discourse, because as a lawyer, we just had a murder case, and I had to tell the jurors, I got an acquittal, but I had to tell the jurors, I condemn the text messages of my client. I don't use those words. I don't stand by those words. They're contemptible words. I don't use them in my house. I don't use them in my mouth. But it was not murder, you see. So I had to do that because it's true. I don't, look, man, I don't,
Right.
I try to, I'm not saying I'm an angel, I mean, we all are human beings,
Yes,
but
sir.
I try to make sure that the words that come out of my mouth lift up our community, not trashes the community.
Now, Mr. Christian, and I've held you long enough, I want to know if you could say one thing. Now, you've been in the jail, you represent, you're a defense lawyer. What is the one thing that we are getting wrong in our community that we need to get right? What is the one thing you think that we have to turn around? We have to change it. I mean, when you talk to the kids, when you go to that jail, and you speak to them, I mean, all these aren't bad kids. Like you said, some of them are just idle. Some of them are even followers, and got in trouble falling behind somebody. What is the one thing, in order for us to go forward, that we must turn around, we must get right?
Discipline, 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 and I'll say it until kingdom come. Reverend Black, you can be the most brilliant person, blessed with all the brains in the world. If you don't bid those books, if you don't go to class, if you don't know how to say yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, how can I help you? If you don't show up, you're not going to make it. What if I'd been rude to my employer? You think you'd have invited me among his friends?
Amen.
Okay? So we have to understand that God has blessed us with intelligence, where we have health, thank God for it, but we must have discipline, because it's discipline that will continue to compel you to read when everybody wants to go to sleep. It's discipline that will tell you, boy, I shouldn't be going to that club tonight. I have to beat that math book. I have to beat that physics book. I have to do that chemistry. I have a chemistry exam tomorrow. It's discipline that say, let's get off that phone, playing those silly games and getting involved in all this garbage on texting and Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff. Because I have to go to school and I have to read my books and I have to do my homework. You have to be disciplined to associate only with people who are rising, not those who are in gangs. One of the big problems I have, I'd say 90% of people I represent, Reverend Black, it's the associates they kept. Remember what I told you about birds of a feather?
Yep, flock together.
So if you're in the group, someone said to me, if you're the smartest person in the group, you need to get another group.
Another group, yeah, amen. I've heard that.
So you always want to be reaching out to people who are smarter than you, who are doing better than you, so you can learn a few things. If you hang around with people who are sitting around, smoking dope, drinking hot, rot-gut liquor, not doing anything, not working, you're on the road to hell and damnation. It's just a matter of time. So discipline to me is the one thing that made for my success. And I want for my young brothers and sisters in our community every little bit of success as I've had and more. I don't want him to be as successful as me. I want him to be more successful than me
Yes,
because
sir.
I feel that I could have even been more successful. Maybe if I've read a little more and maybe did whatever. Although I was an A student, but I always feel I could be A plus.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I want to encourage the discipline, and that's why we did the book on Dr. King. Well, it's not on Dr. King, but I'll show it to you. It's let's see here. I can get it for you. It's very important that we understand the importance of civics and civic leadership, Brother Black. And so what we did was we put together the civics leadership handbook in tribute to Dr. King and the Tuskegee Airmen. And we intend to give it out. We give it out for free at schools and other places. And what it does, it speaks to the principles of civic virtue that I learned as a cadet and as a volunteer and as a student leader, so that the young people can. Here we are with the Duval High School cadets. Can you see it?
Yes, sir. Yes,
We
sir.
have Lieutenant Layden, and these are the cadets who were at Dad's funeral in 2011. They were the JROTC, and that's what we like to see. We like to see our young boys in the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, JROTC, NAACP, Urban League, doing something, church groups, leadership groups, because when you're in leadership organizations, Reverend Black, you're less likely to get yourself in trouble.
Right.
You see.
Yes,
we
sir.
have Arthur Turner, we have Ed Layden, we have Patricia St. Hill, we have Miss Christian, and then of course, as I said, that book is out there, and we're saying to people, if you want us to come out and speak to your young people at the churches and the different organizations, we're talking about 36 years of legal service, 3 as a clerk and 33 as a trial lawyer. We'd be happy to come and do that free of charge because we feel an obligation to our community to this is the book right here. We feel an obligation to our community to share the message of leadership and service, and volunteerism and kindness, because that makes a huge difference in the quality of life here in Prince George's County, in our great state, in our country, and across the world. Yes, sir.
And let me ask you something. Can people go online at your office and look up this book? And get...
Yes, sir. They can go online and they go to the Civic Center on the resources, go to the resources section, and they can get the book. And in there are all the do's and don'ts I learned over a lifetime of service as a cadet. I was a Cub Scout as well. When I was a Cub Scout, the song we used to sing? We used to sing John Brown's Body, and I didn't know who John Brown was.
Yes, sir.
But I also asked people who can hear my voice to go to Harper's Ferry. It's in West Virginia.
Yes.
That's where John Brown made his raid to free the enslaved African Americans. And the song went like this. I'm not much of a singer like you, Reverend Black.
No, not at all. Not even gonna have that gift.
That's John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave. Oh, John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave, but his soul keeps marching on. Glory, glory.
Okay, hallelujah.
Hallelujah. And so we were singing that on the island as a Cub Scout. I was about 7 years old. I didn't know who John Brown was, which is a nice song. And then I found out that John Brown was an abolitionist who supported Abraham Lincoln and who was fed up with waiting. And he actually approached Frederick Douglass to join him. And Frederick Douglass was scared. He said, no, I think that's too radical. He approached Harriet Tubman, but Harriet Tubman had gone to Canada. And he went on there to Harper's Ferry and got the arsenal, but he just didn't have enough power. And they caught him and they tried him and they hung him. But within 1 year, the Civil War broke out and the Union Army went down south singing the song, John Brown.
John Brown.
So he sacrificed himself like Jesus Christ on Calvary's cross, but we were able to gain our freedom through that set of action. And I always tell people, we must always remember a lot of sacrifice made for our success today. And you must not, gesture with that sacrifice, and you must do your little bit. Each of us, if each of us do a little bit, none of us have to do a lot.
How about that? You know what? We're gonna end on that note. if each of us do a little bit, a lot of us don't have to do a lot.
Yes,
Amen.
sir. Yes,
Amen.
sir. Yes, sir.
Again, Gabriel Christian and Associates LLC, 301, what is it, 298?
No,
No,
301.
218. 218
301.
9400 301.
Yes, sir.
I have to look that up. I'm glad I don't memorize that. That would mean I'd have to
Yes,
use it.
301 301
218
218 9400.
Gabriel
Yes,
Christian
sir.
Associates
The
in
people's
Bowie,
law firm.
in Bowie, Maryland. Mr. Christian, God bless you and the family. Please tell the wife. I talked to the daughter, I think one day last week, a week before last, when I called the office. Tell everybody at the office I said hi. I didn't know that. I personally mailed you a copy of my new book, and you haven't gotten it yet, so I'll bring you a copy. I don't know what
Come
happened.
by, and then we go and have some bread. We can break some bread. You see, because
I'll be
yes,
by.
sir.
This one I'm a hand deliver. I'm
Yes,
not
sir.
even gonna trust the mail.
Reverend Black, I just want to say before you go, I want to say it's a high honor and privilege to have been your brother all these years, and we just want to be your obedient servant and to be obedient servant to the community we serve. We feel highly honored and privileged to be here in Prince George's County, great county. We love all people, and we must continue to show that love by demonstrative effort. You see, it's not enough to say I love you. That's nice, but we must go out there and volunteer, and we must go out and help each other. And show up and pay our dues. And most importantly, the message for the day is discipline, discipline, discipline. Of course, not forgetting faith. We need to have our faith, our rock solid faith. Yes.
God bless you, sir. We'll talk real soon.
God bless you.
Tell everyone
Bye-bye.
I said hi.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.